Hey guys, how's it going? So just pretty much wanted to just make a little catch-up video. Didn't release a sort of Sunday market breakdown video this week, but just to kind of run through that, what I've got on watch, a little bit more than usual. I've got my top six, my additional pairs, and then obviously, as you can see, I've got some soft watch. I've got gold, which is looking phenomenal. That massive sort of wick out, push back in, it's good for beginning off a really good move. So just definitely need to see how this kind of materializes over the course. We could get something a little bit more in there as well, so this is something that definitely mindful for. Just going to be patient with it and just see how that develops. UJ also looking really good. There was this sort of reference point over here which we tapped into. We had a little mini structural approach and then we started selling off, which is quite nice, so we might see that develop further. New Zealand yen needs a little bit more room of development, but I'm not too keen on this sort of push away. This isn't the sort of push away I want to be seeing from New Zealand yen from value area. I'll be wanting to see something similar to this, where we can clearly see that we came from this and we just pushed aggressively, created a correction push, and that would be the sort of sequence that isn't always the easiest to get involved on, but it definitely shows a little bit more commitment. Obviously in this case it did come back up for an M star, so one more touch up, finished off with an expanding. I'm pretty sure that this is just going to correct back into these areas here and then pretty much make its way back up. But if I could get a continuation in there to the downside, there is the potential for a 12%, but definitely there's definitely a 3 to 1 there, 4 to 1, so could protect myself pretty well. Obviously that's with 15, even with 10 could be a 5 to 1, so definitely want to bear that in mind when looking at this pair, because there is massive upside potential in terms of growth. And Euro yen as well. Euro yen's looking pretty good. I'm looking for something quite similar to what I saw on UJ, where we kind of had that internal structural approach, but more so clear on the one, which is what I'm looking for there. EG is looking okay. I mean, the thing about it, positioning wise, we have all that selling momentum. It would not be uncommon to see some sort of larger pullback, larger correction, and then for us to see a sell. So I'm not too convinced on it, but doesn't mean that I would stay out of an intraday position. I think this is something I've learned over time, that if we do get something that shapes up here, even with this override here, definitely worth considering, but it's situational. So it looks like we could get a structural approach in there, pattern within a pattern, which then increases the probability for me personally, and then I could be looking for a risk entry on it, but we'll have to wait and see. Germany 40, this one needs a little bit more development, but just like gold, we might be seeing something similar. The only difference is we're coming from this massive impulsive price action where we could potentially see the Germany 40 skyrocket a little bit further for another week or two before we start seeing the sell. So keep that in strong mind. Obviously when this daily closes, we're going to see some very serious differences in the market, because this is the sort of price I want to be getting involved in, of course. So I will be keeping a very close eye on gold. New Zealand US dollar, one of the additional pairs here. There was definitely a trade in here this morning, just wasn't one that I was going to entertain. I think there's something shaping up now, but personally I was more interested in the buy. And then after careful evaluation and kind of just taking some advice on board from my mentors and stuff, they basically said, look, you're missing out on an intraday position here, because if this does happen to sell, and let's say the DXY does start going bullish and start pushing up, where are you positioned on this move? Do you want to be getting positioned? Well, it doesn't really matter really so much about where you are in the sequence, but you could be playing a larger move opposed to seeing this as an intraday sort of from here to here, whereas this could come all the way back down here. So if you were to position yourself there, you could potentially be in that position there, but more than likely we are trading to the override. So from here to the override, and I'll just quickly go back to the 15, go back here, and let's just look at the chart here for a second, and let's say that we did take a position in here which shaped up, met our criteria, and we were able to get into a position, call it 10, wrong way around, call it 10, even to that low you have around about 6, so you could easily be out for about 5%. If this does pull up and retrace. So I think that's something that's super important, because then if this does start to drop, there is massive downside potential. Most probably we wouldn't be holding it all the way to the bottom. If it's a good run, maybe, but we could be seeing about 41% position in there with scale. So just want you to understand that as well. That's something that I've kind of gathered as well. There was a trade in here which I did contemplate as it was shaping up, but I just thought, I'm looking for this. Really, I don't think this was something I wanted, because of the fact of the matter is we had this sort of section here where we could have just kind of pushed out, created something larger and continued, and then I'd be stuck in there trying to get in on the sell right at the bottom of that. So now that we've broken that, it's kind of given me a little bit more clarity that we could be coming in for the short. I'm just interested to now see how we react to this sort of area, and if we can do something like this where we tap into this, we come back down, and we come back up, and then we do something like that. Sure, for 100% I'll be looking for something in there for that short to go low, because then I can position myself in there to go in for, call it around about 10 pip stop, and near enough, yeah, you're looking at about a 6 to 1, 7 to 1. So definitely a position that I'm going to be considering if it does shape up. Just needs a little bit more time to develop. In the afternoon I might put it on watch with my other pairs, filter something out, this and that, but I already have enough on there, so going to leave as is. Similar to GU hasn't tapped into the high yet, and I think that could be a small signal. Look, we have a clear near miss over here, and I just like to label them, and then we have a clear one over there as well, and I think it's an obvious clue that we could definitely at some point come and fill that. We don't have to fill it, we can drop off without it, but we will probably fill it at some point. And I think it's very important for me to just understand that this sort of price where, you know, we've tapped into the lows, we've missed the high twice, so a near miss to this high and then a near miss to this high, it's kind of just shouting that we're going to be going for the long. So I am looking more so for the long than the short, staying with my sort of overall thesis from my Sunday market breakdown, but understanding that data can change and we could pivot. So I'm not too convinced with the short just yet. I am looking for the buy on this particular pair, so I'll remove this off, just because looking at GU we could gravitate back up, fill that, and then sell if we are going to sell as a possibility. EU, still looking for the buy on this. This is nice. We have a nice value area down here. We are slowly making our way back down. As soon as we tap into that, I am then going to be positioning myself to look for that push up, that flag, and to go long. I think that requires a huge amount of patience, but the good thing is when you understand this on a larger perspective, you can then say, I know exactly where I want to be positioning myself and what confirmations I'm looking for, and I think that's going to obviously make you a much better trader. For myself, I am also looking at USD CAD for a continuation lower. We did have the near miss to the high there, but then also at the same time, we are playing this larger range. We had the liquidity area here, which acted as the hook point. We tapped into it with a structural 1-2-3 approach. We pushed away, not the best sort of push away at the beginning, but then we gave some continuation, and now we're just moving lower. We could make our ways all the way down here before we come back up to fill that near miss as well. So that is something I'm going to be keeping very much in mind, but the value area one is where I'm really looking to basically just see how price gets to that area, because that would basically be where I think a lot of the liquidity will be, sort of people will be getting out of the market, price could get a little bit larger, create a larger correction, and then we will sell off. So something that I'm going to be bearing in mind. But if we can get a continuation in over here, and let's just say this gets a little bit larger, but let's just take this for a second and say there is an entry in here, you could be potentially looking at something around about a 7 to 9%, maybe even 10, but then there's the overall potential for this to run to 26. So I think that's definitely something that I will be keeping an eye on. We can get larger, of course, as well. Just want to make that very clear that we could, you know, create something like this, probably not that large, but you know, we go up, come down, come up again, go down, and then we're trading in this area here, and then we get the sell in from there to that low. So bear that in mind as well. EuroCAD needs a little bit more development. I'm not personally, from experience, not going to be taking that as the first touch. I'm going to be looking at that as the first touch. and the second touch hasn't really been confirmed until we start pushing away. And then when we do get a sort of push away, perhaps maybe then I can position myself to go short, or we get a wick up, we tap into this bit of liquidity and then we sell, or we create something a bit larger before we sell. So there's a few possibilities there and a few different types of entries I'll be looking for, but more than likely we just have to wait for the structure to develop. So it's not really on watch today. Maybe this afternoon, this evening, I might move it to watch, but I don't think at this point I will. So we have Aussie CAD. I did have a position in Aussie CAD, but then I kind of took a manual close just because it was just developing a little bit more messy than I thought. So I kind of just got forced out the market. It does happen sometimes, and I think a lot of people could probably relate to that. It is what it is, you know. Sometimes the market is just not giving you what you need, and the position I had was basically in this area here, and I had the long position, and then understood my protection was actually way down here, so it was more than fine. But with so much shaping up in the market, I was more than happy to take a break even on that rather than just kind of holding it in hope, because really and truly, you know, what's the point? You know, what's the point of taking a let's say a silly loss for, you know, the sake of just hoping that this could go higher? You know, this can still get quite messy, can get larger. You know, it's just one of those ones where it has massive upside potential, and I fully understand that, and the positioning was still pretty good. It's just overall I'm more than happy to stay out and just kind of wait for something else for now. If we do get something shape up there, potentially there could be a long position. We haven't really tapped into that low, but then we are really coming from that area, so this could become into something larger. But there is definitely that sort of 1, 2, 3 approach into that area to now go long. It would still make sense for that to go long. So overall, I think Aussie CAD is definitely the prime one to be watching as well. Euro New Zealand, need some sort of structure to develop. We did tap into that low, so I would ideally want to see something more so like, you know, that comes in, it comes back down, comes back up, and then we get sort of entry in here, and then we continue, we get that insurance entry, and we can sell. I wouldn't be looking for a risk entry up here, but like I said, it's still very subjective, because this could be the first touch for something like that, and then we get something like this, and then it just takes its time to develop and then sells. So it's a very subjective time to be taking a trade in here, so I wouldn't be touching that. Aussie New Zealand, it's another one where I'm a little bit waiting for a little bit more. I don't think I'm going to be looking for a 2-touch on this for sure. I'm going to be waiting to just see if that can tap into there, come in down here, and then maybe come up one more, and then we get a trade like that. That would be something I would be more interested in. Understanding could shape up late this week, but really and truly, if we do come back down and then we come up for one more, then I could understand that there could be this with that subjective first touch there. But then I could be looking at that to play the area and just evaluate price action in that zone. So it's basically how I'm going to be looking at Aussie New Zealand. And AJ, you know, it's typical where I see something like that and then it kind of comes up 50% and sells off. I've seen it quite a lot with a few Aussie pairs, Aussie US dollar especially, during particular runs. So I wouldn't be surprised if this did start to sell off. I think the clear message that we would have to take from it is if we got a continuation down here, we could then position ourselves within here to go short, but understand that this could then just sort of tap into that low and then kind of come back up and then create something a little bit like, yeah, so it still holds a bit of risk to it. The sort of push to the downside is not really the most convincing for myself on the 1 hour as well, just because it's very sort of choppy. Like I said with New Zealand yen, I am looking for something quite similar to this sort of, you know, aggressive sort of push away. Sort of that's the sort of price action I am looking for to take a continuation to the downside. So at the end of the day, I'm not really too in love with the price at the moment, but I know that there's better development. So like I said, keeping an eye on some of these prime pairs here. They've got massive downside potential. So yeah, just need to wait and see how they develop. If they do develop pretty well, then we could be able to take advantage of a few of them. Yeah, the 5 doesn't really do much justice. I think right now EG is definitely the prime watch one for myself. I would love to see how this develops. If we can get something internally in here, which I'm just on the 5 for refinement, but 15 probably be a bit more clear. If we could get something like that and it does drop off a little bit and then it comes up, it still would seem a little bit corrective, to be honest. And I think then it would kind of put you off the trade. So I think right now this is more than enough, but I think I would then have to wait for probably a 5-minute entry on this one. If we did get it, where price pushed up, pushed back down, created something more in depth, and then we sold. And then maybe, yeah, even on the 15, it should be visible on the 15 actually, to be honest. So I will be looking for that 15-minute flag like that, and that's how I'll be looking to take advantage of this one. So I will be waiting extra patient for that, and if that shapes up, then yeah, I'll be good to go. Taking that, I think there should be a 3-to-1 even on the reduced risk, which will be my preferred entry. Yeah, that's totally fine. So yeah, you're looking at about 2.8-to-1, and then to that low down there, 5.6. That's their first inflection point. Could get a little bit larger at that point. So you might be floating around about back up to 3% from that 5. Then to only get in again for it to go to 8. So situational for sure. Definitely high risk. This could develop into something larger. Falcon flag. I've looked at many different forecasters for that, but I think looking at that, that's clean. That's something nice, shaping up really well. So that's basically it for this week in terms of my watch list and what I'm looking at. And just to finally cover, actually, the DXY would make a lot of sense to be playing right now, because we can see that if you do look at this area here where we kind of missed it, and then you look at this as a potential near miss to this high, then you can kind of understand that, okay, this then could actually now be playing correction, push up, correct, maybe not that large, but back into this area to then go short. It's definitely a possibility. However, we must also understand that this is also a possibility as well, and then we could potentially look for a short from that area, or typically we might even see price continue and keep going further. So I wouldn't get married to the short just because we started selling off, and obviously because we've been looking at that, but I would understand that right now we are trending dominantly to the downside, and we could be making our way clearly to the low. So one thing I am looking at is if we do start aggressively selling, once again, we are pretty much aggressively selling now. We look at the weekly, and I think this paints a very good picture. We've been dropping off, but that bit of indecision there definitely shows that there's the possibility that we could, float around this area for a little bit, accumulate some more volume before we sell. If we do kind of sit here for another 2 weeks, then it would make a lot of sense for this to continue to the downside. However, I do understand that this could pivot now, and we could, pretty much make our way back up. Something that would be nice is if we did go up and we created something more so like this, then I would understand that this would be a prime area for that short, and then we could see that sort of internal structure within there, taps into that liquidity area just up there, pushes up, hits that, and sells. So there's a few variations of things I'm looking at. No point over forecasting because it is weeks away. Right now, just looking at what we have, and on the 4 we can see there's a few value areas there. We are coming off an inflection point just here. We pushed away. We are kind of not really in the best, because I think if this was going to go, it would have gone. Like really and truly, if this was going to go, we probably would have been like somewhere up here by now, creating something like that, and then ready to go. So I think the nice thing about this is we kind of correctively pushed, correction again, and then maybe just correctively go again, corrective, taps into this area here, and then starts to sell. I am looking to see if we do get something. So this being the first touch, push, kind of comes in, pushes up again, near misses, comes down, and then comes up for one more, taps into this area here, and then we sell, coming in with that 1, 2, 3 element, and we get that. That is something I'm more so interested in. This could basically be the false sort of short, but then again, we might even get that internally, and we might not come to that point there. So we might even see this here, comes up, taps in here, comes down, taps in again, and then that becomes your 1, 2, 3, and then we sell from there. So Positioning here and here for the short would definitely be more of my interest, but just understanding that between these two areas it's not too far apart, around about 32 pips away, 320. So whatever you want to really kind of look at, I think more so I am interested in this one, but I do understand that if we do go from here it would make total sense too. So just want to bear that in mind as well when you are looking at these pairs. So for this week, I think it's looking very, very nice. I have an entry at the moment which is just here, around about 30 pips. Took a little bit extra just in case of wicking and stuff, but looking at this to play, if we can get the commitment to the downside, there could be an 8% position in there. I think more so we could look at this as a range right now, and this could still develop into a number of things. I just want to see how it kind of formulates, and then if it comes back up for a third touch, it is what it is. We'll just deal with it then. But there's a few different variations of what I'm going to be looking for here anyway. I do like the fact that, you know, we got that commitment from here now and we are pushing away. It just kind of gives you the extra confirmation on everything you've learned as well. So price is looking really good for this week. Stay very, very sharp because there's a lot of potential. And yesterday I had my accountability call as well, which I think I could definitely share some value with you guys as well. If you haven't had an accountability call with anyone yet, I would say that a lot of the value that I get in leveling up is from talking to people who are more experienced than myself, or I would say that has a little bit more knowledge in areas that I seek, or they've really sought advice from someone above them, which they've kind of passed down. So it's like a funneling process, which is quite nice. So it's always good to surround yourself with people who trade either in a similar way or trade as well, who are successful, and you can see traits that you want to obtain from those people, and then usually it works really well. That's why I say community is extremely important, because with a community then you can kind of take a step back and be like, well, I'm not doing this alone. If I need some help, I can talk to someone else who's basically doing the same thing. There is a lot of communities out there. If you are looking to join one, you can drop me a message and I'll be more than happy to point you in the right direction to one that may fit you pretty well. I mean, if you like the way that I'm trading, you know, there's a community for it. So the bits of advice I would say is, you know, there's no way back, so keep pushing, keep your eyes forward, keep working every day, discipline, hard work, day in, day out, keep moving forward every day, value your foundations, basically know them 100%, and then routines, daily goals, understand them really well as well, and then focus on your bigger goal, so 7 figures and beyond. Your job's not finished, basically, by Kobe as well as another one. So keep putting yourself in that mindset where the job's not finished, so you know you have stuff to do. Make sure you get it done. And that was basically just a summary of the final notes of taking it into Q4 from the accountability call there. But definitely wanted to share that with you because some of those points could jump out to you and kind of just speak to you, which I think would be super valuable. And one other thing is being more self-aware. Don't allow the self-talk to become an unconscious competence. Have a positive self-talk and make that your unconscious competence. So all in all, I would say that right now we're looking at a very, very good time in the market. December is definitely going to be filled with a lot of momentum and excitement. I'm going to be might be releasing another data collection video on some December data, because something that not just myself, there's quite a few people who are doing this at the moment, is just analyzing the November to December period to get a better understanding and familiarize themselves with the momentum in the market kicking in. So that's something I will be focusing a bit of my time on at the moment, just to kind of get that data in and get a better understanding, and not just a better understanding, but kind of build that mental toughness for when that momentum kicks in, that I've kind of already had a level of experience towards it in terms of preparation for taking trades in the live market conditions. So just want to kind of share that with you as well. And if you guys are thinking of doing the same, definitely would be more than happy to share some data, kind of see what gatherings you got, what gatherings I got, and I think that would be absolutely amazing. And then going forward this month for myself, I'll be going through the mechanics, definitely religiously, just kind of pushing through it. 2 non-negotiables for this month, of course. One of them is rewired, and if you haven't got rewired, I would definitely suggest that you invest in your psychology, because the technical side of things is fairly easy, as you can see from our videos. And if you haven't watched the videos, you can go back and see quite a lot of them. Technicals becomes easier and easier over time. Of course, there's always room for improvement, but you can get them to a certain standard. And there's this famous saying, which is, you don't need to be the finished article to make money, right? And that kind of applies for your technicals as well, where you don't need to be perfect with your technicals to make money. You just need to understand where the big banks and institutions are positioning themselves, for you to then know how you can position yourself accordingly to be on the right side of the market. Because if you put yourself on the right side of the market enough times, you will make enough money for you then to be consistent in that sense. So that's something that I wanted to share with you. But more so, invest in your psychology. But then what I'll be doing as the 2 negotiables is obviously psychology and technicals as well, back every day. Definitely going to do Saturday and Sunday as well this time around December. Obviously there's no kind of, not going to lay back and relax on it, so definitely we'll be doing that throughout the whole month, from day 1 till New Year's. And yeah, we're going to see how that goes. So hopefully we'll see some massive improvements on that. Doing something called a 3-step process, similar to how I do my Sunday market breakdowns. Is one day you kind of just go through it, pick the pairs. So this is what I do with the videos. I kind of watch the content. Then the second time I go through it, I kind of do it with notes, so kind of put some annotations and stuff on it. And then the third time I kind of just review it all, right? Just making sure it's all where it needs to be before I finalize and move on to the next step. So it's basically how I do it. So step 1, watch it, just enjoy the content. Second one, watch the content, take notes, aggressive, intentional notes. And then third time, watch it over and see the notes. And then there's actually a 4th step that comes later, is where you start applying it. So this is what what I'll be doing after I've done it the first time round. 3-step process on each part of the content is then I will be applying everything that has been pointed out that's basically new to myself, and then I'll be going to collect data on it. So maybe something small, like 10 examples for each, but then just to get familiarized with it, or 3 as a minimum. But and I think that's super important as well, because then you don't just watch it, understand it, but then you actually start applying it. And then I think by putting that application in there, you kind of solidify that knowledge. So it's basically what I'll be doing, guys. So yeah, that kind of summarizes the whole video for this week. I'll probably try post another data collection video this week at some point when I do get a chance to go through that, but my main focus this week is just kind of studying and getting through some content, and then kind of moving forward from there. So if you have any questions, like usual, you can drop them in the comments or hit me up on Instagram. Be more than happy to get back to you, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care.